Hi, welcome back inside Uplift Property Management. Today we're going to talk about 6 ways to maximize your rental income. Now, my very first tip is to increase your rent strategically. That might seem really straightforward and like an obvious thing to do, but this is something that is actually very important to make sure that you are maximizing your rental income and not just thinking, what's a standard normal rent increase I can do, but actually looking at the market. So review comparable rental rates in your area and think about what would this tenant be looking to move into in case I were to increase my rent too much, right? So we don't necessarily recommend matching the market completely, but instead making sure that you're staying a little bit competitive while still being considerate of what are similar properties renting for near you that offer the same type of benefits to your tenant. Now, of course, make sure that you are timing these rent increases with your lease renewals. We also always recommend offering 2 different rent increase amounts based on if you want to offer a 12-month renewal or a month-to-month. Us at Uplift Property Management, we always want to incentivize our tenants to sign that 12-month lease agreement, so that rent increase might be a little bit smaller for the 12-month versus a little bit larger at the month-to-month. Still considerate of making sure that we are competitive in the market. And of course, make sure that you are communicating these rent increases not only respectfully, but following all the legal requirements that you need in order to technically modify the terms of your lease. So depending on what state you're in, there are different timelines that you need to follow in order to be able to force place a rent increase. And we always recommend doing that because there's always a chance that your tenants might not actually sign a month-to-month or a 12-month, but instead you're going to have to default to one of those options. And that's when following the timeline that you need in order to do a rent increase is really important. So make sure that you check your local regulations of that or talk to the local property manager to make sure you understand the timeline you need to follow for a rent increase. Now, my second tip is to consider adding paid amenities. Now, these amenities could include allowing a pet at your property and being able to charge an additional pet rent. It could be things like reserved parking, specific storage for your unit, possibly having laundry facilities. These are all things that are going to increase the cash flow for your property and also increase the tenant's experience while living at your rental property. Tip number 3, of course, the best way to increase cash flow is to minimize vacancy, which means that you are trying to reduce tenant turnover. So you want to keep these tenants as long as possible, and that means being really timely with your maintenance requests, making sure that you are clear and professional in all of the communication that you have, and of course offering lease renewal incentives, or like I just talked about, lease renewal options, to make sure that they still want to live at your property and they feel like this is a mutually beneficial agreement. That's what makes tenants stay longer. Now, tip number 4 is the same side of that, making sure that you're minimizing vacancy, but not just by having tenants not move out, but by preparing for when tenants will inevitably move out. That means marketing your property before the current lease even ends. So if a tenant reaches out to me and gives me 30-day notice, that day I am listing the property. I am making sure that I am gathering interest from potential tenants so that I can minimize the vacancy time that we have. And of course, I want to make sure I have high quality photos, something that looks desirable to tenants. If your photos don't look great, tenants aren't going to want to go see your property in person. And of course, that next thing of getting those showings scheduled as quickly as possible, making sure that your property looks ready for those showings is going to be really important to minimize your vacancy time as well. Now, tip number 5 is to upgrade wisely. Now, what does that mean? I want you to think about the type of upgrades that are actually going to get you more rent for your property. There are a lot of things that you can do that maybe you personally living in this home, you would absolutely love to have at your property. But we want to think about what is most compelling for the majority of the rental market. And these are very simple things like new paint, new flooring, making sure that your light fixtures are updated, right? That we don't have really aged, not the best pretty looking light fixtures. We want tenants to walk into a unit and be like, wow, I would love to live here in this unit. We also want to make sure that we're upgrading any kitchen hardware, any faucets, and possibly including energy efficient appliances. These are things that tenants are looking at now. They're thinking about, what is my electricity bill going to look like in this unit that maybe has really old, outdated appliances that aren't energy efficient. These are all things that can actually increase the marketability of your unit and get you more rent for your rental property. Now, tip number 6, I want you to screen your tenants carefully. What does that have to do with making more money? This is how you avoid future tenant problems. This is how you avoid having tenants that are causing unnecessary property damage. This is how you avoid tenants who aren't paying their rent on time or at all. All of this prevention is going to make you more money in the end, right? So make sure that you're running background and credit checks, you're verifying income, and of course, rental history. If you can talk to a previous landlord and find out what they were like as a tenant, if they took good care of the property, if they were communicative about maintenance issues, and that they always paid their rent on time, that is going to be a lifesaver for your rental property and the cash flow there. And that's it for my 6 tips today on how to increase cash flow and make more money on your rental property. If you want any more advice or any other tips, feel free to give us a call. Again, my name is Marley and I work at Uplift Property Management. We look forward to hearing from you.